and public sectors for more than 30 years. Through her consulting business, the Adlers Agency, she collaborates with and leads many cultural and nonprofit organizations. Her rather extensive client list also includes multiple quality choirs in Canada, Latvia, and Estonia. Laura is a manager of development and partnerships at the Burlington Performing Arts Center. She's also a published literary translator from Latvian to English and recently completed the translation of Aldis Bukšas' novel Brāļi, or Brothers. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Thomas Burton was raised in Wolfville, Nova Scotia. He is the artistic director of the Orpheus Choir of Toronto, conductor of the tenor-bass chorus at the University of Toronto, artistic director of Durham's Region's Resound Choir, co-conductor of the award-winning Halifax-based chamber choir Eastern Horizon, and a recipient of many, many prestigious awards. He has worked with the Pacific Chorale, the Amadeus Choir of Greater Toronto, Pro Choral Canada, the National Youth Choir of Canada, and the Vancouver Chamber Choir. Thomas has also sung with some of Canada's finest choral ensembles, including the Toronto Mendelssohn Singers, Voces Boreales, and the Nathaniel Dett Chorale. Praised for his innovative and eclectic programming, as well as his dynamic presence on the podium, Thomas is in demand nationally as a guest conductor, clinician, and educator. We are very pleased and very honored that we have two such prominent and interesting guest speakers today. Mada?
Welcome to our first Thursday lunch of the fall season. And as you all know, or if you don't yet know, please let others know, the first Thursday of every month, which we call First Thursdays, is in English, and we serve a fantastic Ingo's prepared lunch. So please tell everybody we'll be doing that for November and December, and then again in the new year. So Anders has given a great introduction to Laura and Thomas. And before we get going, if you can just give me a show of hands, if you have ever sung a song in Latvian or Estonian. That's pretty unanimous. How many, do you know the name of a Latvian or Estonian composer? Pretty good. Well, you'll know more after this. Do you know the name of a Latvian or Estonian conductor? Okay, that's what we're here for today. And when I saw the Facebook images from May when they were doing this trip in Latvia and Estonia, it just looked like something that would be really interesting for us. So please enjoy. Laura, you're up.
Labdien, tere. I want to know how many, I know we have Estonian guests here. Can you raise your hand so I know where you, yay. Look at all of you. This is fantastic. Great. Thank you for joining us. I will be speaking in English. I hope that this is okay for everyone because we want everyone to understand about this wonderful adventure that we went on. So Mara just asked a question that I was going to ask. So I'm going to ask more questions about singing. How many people here have ever sung in a choir in their lives, at any time in their lives? Of course, because you're Baltic. How many of you have ever sung in a mass choir at the Latvian or Estonian song celebrations? Great, a lot actually, wonderful. So Latvians, I don't know if Estonians have an equivalent, but Latvians have a folk song that says, I was born singing, I grew up singing, and I will sing for the rest of my life. And that is truly the ethos of the cultural aspect of Latvian lives. The fact that Latvians have folk songs that tell of singing as part of daily life is unique. The fact that both nations have open-air stages built for our UNESCO-recognized song celebrations is unique. And the fact that choral singing is an integral part of Latvia's and Estonia's cultural identities is really unique. I've been singing in choirs since I was little in Latvian school in Hamilton. And when I was in university, I produced my first concert for our Latvian Youth Symposium, SHME, which Mada and I organized together back when we were like 18, 19, which included choirs and chamber music. It was at actually the Church of the Redeemer across from the museum. In 1990, I had the immense privilege of singing in Mežaparks in the mass choir. It was the first time that choirs from outside of Latvia were allowed to participate in the song celebrations as the Soviet regime started to crumble. It was such an emotionally charged experience, and it was one that changed my life. I forgot I'm supposed to be clicking. So this was, I think, from the last song celebrations in Latvia with the new open-air stage. And also a shot. All roads led me to a career in arts management, and much of the last 30 years has involved me working with community and professional choirs across Canada. For the past 20 years, I have also worked with the very best community, youth, and professional choirs, conductors, and composers from Latvia. As is the case with so many of us in this room and online, I live and work in Canada, and I'm a very proud Canadian, but a big part of my heart and soul is always in the land of my heritage in Latvia. I distinctly remember a time around 2005 when I was working with Lydia Adams at the Amadeus Choir in Toronto, and she had a big pile of scores of music that had been sent to her from various composers around the world. As I'm sure Thomas receives many, many scores, but probably now by email. And there's just big pile of scores. And I was looking through them one day and discovered an arrangement of Amazing Grace by an as yet unknown composer named Eriks Eschenwalds. He would have been about 27 when he wrote this, a stunning arrangement of Amazing Grace. This was one of many instances when my two worlds crossed but didn't quite connect. Although Lydia did perform this piece with the Elmer Eisler Singers, her professional choir, within a couple of years of receiving this score. But it was in amongst like 50 other scores, and it was wonderful that she chose to perform this. And this sense of this paths crossing but not quite connecting lit a fire in me to really work on fostering cross-cultural connections, particularly between Canadian and Latvian choirs, composers, and conductors. Many years later, in 2018, I produced a tour together with Robert Cooper and the Orpheus Choir of Toronto for Eriks Eschenwalds, which involved us touring and doing workshops with 4 universities across Ontario and Quebec, and also premiering his Nordic Light Symphony and a documentary film about the making of this symphony. And it was sold out. Metropolitan United was packed, and it was a source of great pride for both Bob and me that we made this happen and introduced Eriks to Canada. As Baltic choral music has grown in popularity in North America and the song celebrations phenomenon has become better known around the world, I have had many conversations with choral colleagues in Canada and the US about their great interest in learning more about these countries and about the musical education systems that foster such a strong choral culture, where in fact choral singing is a part of the national identity. And most of them tell me they would love to visit, but they wouldn't know where to start. That they would go if there were a tour organized with other choral conductors. So 2.5 years ago, I started to organize. And I realized that I needed a partner organization in Latvia to anchor the tour, which was the Jāzeps Vītols Latvian Music Academy, with the idea being that we would visit Latvia at the end of the academic year when conducting and composition students were doing their exams and final concerts were happening. And to help organize everything on the ground in Latvia, I partnered with my dear friend, Aida Birziņa, who is the principal conductor and professor at the Academy. This beautiful portrait of her will greet you as you arrive in Riga right now in the terminal as you're arriving. It's fantastic. Thank you, Mara, for capturing that a couple of weeks ago. So here's just quickly a list of the participants who joined us. Thomas, who's here today, who's from Toronto. Graham Climie from Calgary. Janet Correa from Oakville. Arturs Jansons, who many of you know, from Toronto. Stephanie Martin, a revered composer in Canada, from Toronto. Dr. Timothy Shantz, who is the Director of Choral Studies with the doctoral program at University of Alberta. Hania and Peter White, who were gifts to all of us. They're a wonderful couple, patrons of the arts who attend, they say, over 300 choral concerts a year. And I met them when I was working in Laura, and they were the first to sign up. They're just like, we're going, Laura. And it's our 50th wedding anniversary, so this is what we're doing. So they joined us, and we were so grateful to have them with us. And I know Peter's watching right now, so good afternoon, Peter. And Dr. John Wiebe, also from Edmonton, also teaching choral studies at the University of Alberta, but at another campus. So I'm just going to keep talking a bit, and my colleague at the back is going to set this on auto reel. I'm just going to let you see some of the sights and sounds of our tour while I talk. First and foremost, I wanted this tour to be a true cultural exchange where my Canadian colleagues learned about Latvian choral culture, but where we also brought Canadian choral culture to Latvia. Thanks to grants from Daugavsvanag in Canada. Guntin, thank you for being here today. And the Latvian National Federation in Canada. I think Elizabeth is here too. Through the Līvijas Jansons and Leonard Skreitoļu funds, we sort of pooled our choices, and we chose 19 Canadian choral works, which are being broadly performed in North America and around the world, and purchased 30 copies of each for the Music Academy's library, where they now live, where they're being cataloged. This has never been done before, so they're figuring out a system to catalog this and make them available to choirs across the country. They told me that they know virtually nothing about Canadian or American choral music, so this was a revelation to them. They're very happy to receive this repertoire, and I'm just looking forward to seeing how this develops, how much of it gets programmed and who's singing it, taking it on tour to festivals and so on. So a wonderful opportunity for all. Thomas, Tim Shantz, and John Wiebe led reading sessions of this repertoire with the Academy's mixed choir and the Riga Cathedral Choir School's mixed choir. Both of them are between teenagers and early 20s. Tim also delivered presentations at both schools about contemporary Canadian choral music, truth and reconciliation, and how Canadian choirs are now working in collaboration with Indigenous composers and artists to heal the wounds of the past. Over the course of 5 days in Latvia, we met with Latvian composers, observed many choral rehearsals, and met with conductors and school directors. We met with the team at the music publisher Mūzika Baltica to hear about leading Latvian composers and to peruse and purchase scores. And we enjoyed the sights and sounds and beer and balsams and cuisine and cultural institutions in Riga. I have to say, it took less than a day for me to see that my colleagues had fallen for Latvia. Made me real happy. Another objective I had set for this tour was to cultivate future cross-cultural collaborations between Latvian choral colleagues and members of my tour group. And I'm happy to say that there are some exciting projects brewing as a result, though of course I can't talk about them just yet. But I know that there are many new Canadian-Latvian connections and exchanges happening, And the Canadian conductors on this tour are programming this season or will be commissioning and or programming Latvian and Estonian composers' works in the future. While our time in Latvia was more intensive with meetings and observing rehearsals, classes, and exams, we all wanted to also visit Estonia. I had actually never been myself, and we had to go to Estonia as well. On our last day in Latvia, we drove through the beautiful countryside, the countryside was just beautiful yellow fields, canola fields in bloom, to Viļķene, which is the birthplace of Baltijas Kārlis, the composer of Latvia's national anthem, where hundreds of singers and dancers had gathered to celebrate the 190th anniversary of the composer's birth. Although rainy and cold when we arrived, by the time the 600 singers had gathered on the stage for the concert, the sun had come out. It was the perfect way to end our time in Latvia, and we were all so sad to be leaving. I have a little moment there that I haven't even shared with Thomas, and I have to try not to cry, but that connection sort of came full circle for me in the most tiniest way when we were standing with the crowds and all the singers were at the monument, the Baltijas monument, and we were singing the national anthem. And Thomas and Tim were standing just in front of me, and they had their cell phones. And they were singing along. They looked it up, and they all just wanted to be so much a part of the experience, and they were singing my anthem with us, which was really beautiful. Thank you. Oh, goodness. I wasn't going to do that. Some levity. So I'm obsessed with storks in Latvia. And all the way there, we were driving in the bus, and I had everybody counting how many storks and how many babies in stork nests they could see. So that became our new obsession. And only Hania and I still continue tracking the storks, who are now in South Africa in their migration. So now we're in Estonia. We were so lucky in Estonia to be able to attend the regional rehearsals in Tartu for July's song celebrations. A full day of hearing a new language, a different choral sound, a glorious choral sound, a new and equally beautiful country. We were all thrilled to visit the Arvo Pärt Center. I think we were looking forward to that the most. A magical place surrounded by pine forest near the Baltic Sea. We all so hoped that the maestro would walk through the doors of the center. But alas, we were not so fortunate. We know that he just turned 90 on September 11th, and he has been in frail health. We could feel his presence. It's such a beautiful place to visit. And it was so great to see footage of him visiting his center on his birthday, dancing to one of the children's songs that he had written about growing up to be a big boy. And he was sort of motioning that he's becoming smaller again. Our last 3 days were spent in Tallinn, observing and meeting with the very best of Estonian choirs. Again, everyone so forthcoming and wanting to answer our questions and discuss their latest projects. Our time in Tallinn was definitely too short, but it was memorable and beautiful. Finally, it was very important to me to document this tour as a promotional tool for future tours, to have feedback and testimonials from the tour participants, and to showcase the beauty of both countries and the broad range of experiences for the participants. I was so pleased that Graham Climby, one of the tour participants from Calgary, who is also a very talented videographer, was able to create a promotional video, which we will premiere here in just a few minutes. We were able to create this video with thanks once again to Daugavsvanagi Canada and the Latvian National Federation in Canada through the Līvis Jansons and Leonard Skreitoļ Fund. How are we doing for time? Okay. I would like to now introduce to you Thomas Burton. Oh, I was supposed to click through. See, I just got so, this is all, you know what's coming. So these were our partners. Kravis Travel, Ingrid Kravis fantastic travel agent for us. We worked with Bubbles and More in Riga to put together a lot of our travel. So I would like to now introduce Thomas to share some of his experiences with all of you. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and Baltijas, thank you for having me here today. It's a great pleasure to share a little bit about our experiences in Riga and Tallinn, and to talk a little bit about the really life-changing week and a half that we had experiencing the Baltic choral tradition firsthand. I first became acquainted with Baltic choral music at the beginning of my undergraduate studies at McGill University in Montreal. Growing up in rural Nova Scotia, my world was very small, and so my move to Montreal after high school was the beginning of many openings of my horizons. Within a couple of weeks of studying at McGill University, I was recruited to sing in a professional Baltic choir called Voces Boreales, and I was immediately entranced by the music in a way that I was not able to fully comprehend at the time. The vibrancy of the sound, the twisting harmonies, the underlying darkness mixed with an indescribable beauty of language struck me in a way that my 19-year-old brain couldn't fully understand. So almost 15 years later, when the opportunity to explore Latvia and Estonia in person with Laura and many friends and colleagues came up, I jumped at the opportunity. What a great chance to understand more about this music that had such a profound impact on my own musical journey right at its outset. In no time, I was on a plane, I had completed my connection in Copenhagen, crossed the ocean, and I was about to begin one of the most fulfilling and informative learning experiences of my musical career. When I'm not making music, I love to run. I'm a runner. I love the feeling of zipping through a neighborhood, experiencing my surroundings at speed, while still having time to appreciate the beauty of my environment. Our first morning in Riga, I was eager to explore the surroundings of our hotel through the lens of a brisk jog along the river, past the opera house, through the winding maze of cobblestone streets, into the more ordinary residential areas. What better way to see what life was like for everyday people living in Riga than to observe folks getting their groceries, taking a stroll through a beautiful park, or just spending quality time together. One short morning into our trip, and I was already falling in love with my Baltic surroundings. After that first morning jog, the rest of our trip felt like a marathon of its own in the best of ways. We were fortunate to observe so many rehearsals. A typical day involved at least 3 separate events that we would take in, be it a rehearsal with a choir or a meeting with a renowned conductor or composer. It felt like we were constantly running from one life-changing choral experience to the next. When we weren't hustling from place to place or grabbing coffee or lunch with an iconic musician and new friend, everyone was so welcoming and friendly. We were listening deeply to choirs in rehearsal, singing the music of their culture and many other cultures. We watched singers of all ages rehearse, perform, connect with each other, their conductors, and their beautiful music. It's rare, for myself at least, as a full-time choral conductor, to have much time to observe the rehearsals of other conductors, let alone musicians with such a different approach than my own. The intricacies of the Baltic choral sound are baked right into the language. with the unique combination of vowel sounds, engendering a choral tone that is extremely arresting. And even between the subtle differences between the Estonian language and the Latvian language, you hear a massive difference in each choir's sound. The brightness of the Estonian language and the richness of the Latvian vowel sounds. It was fascinating. The sound of a Baltic choir grips your ear in a way that I had not experienced many times before in my career. One of our first mornings, we had the great privilege of sitting in on a rehearsal with the State Choir Latvia, which is a fully government-funded professional choir of 60 of the best singers in the world. They were rehearsing a large piece by the famed Estonian composer Arvo Pärt, who you've heard about several times today. And it was their first time reading this piece of music together. And even though they were sight reading, the precision and the glorious sound and the raw depth of their emotion in their first read-through brought me to tears. It's an experience I will never forget. There were so many other amazing experiences on this trip, too many to mention all of them, but some highlights were the reading session that Laura mentioned at the National High School for the Arts and the University of Latvia, having the opportunity to share Canadian music with our new Latvian friends and colleagues. I'll never forget conducting the high schoolers at the Cathedral Choir School through some very challenging Canadian choral music. At least in Canada, we find it challenging. These students who sing in choir 14 hours a week sight read more adeptly than many fully professional Canadian choirs, not just with accuracy, but with passion and expression on music that they'd never seen or heard before in their life. And they were in grades 10 to 12. It was incredible. Some other highlights of the trip were seeing the discipline and polish of the Estonian National Boys Choir, standing at the top of the great bandstand that houses the massive Latvian Song and Dance Festival. And this was a pretty special evening, a 3-hour production of Macbeth, entirely in Estonian, that had me on the edge of my seat from start to finish, even though I could not understand a single word. Outside of the music, there were many other great runs on the trip as well. Whether I was jogging through the magnificent Meža parks in Riga or along Tallinn's sparkling and idyllic waterfront, there was always another sight to see, another architectural wonder to admire, and another smiling face to share brief but happy moments. Through all of it, there was an overwhelming sense that I was somewhere unlike anywhere else on the planet. A few days into our trip, after my initial awe had subsided, just slightly, I began to wonder more deeply. Why are these countries, each not very much bigger than my home province of Nova Scotia, home to some of the highest quality music and art making in the world? What is it that drives these people to always be creating in tandem with one another, to spend so much of their time engaging in the unifying act of song? It was our last morning in Riga, and I was just finishing up my final run through the city when I found myself by a large building that stood out from the others. Among the colorful facades and decorated rooftops was this large black square building, Riga's Museum of the Occupation. I'd been told that the museum was worth visiting, so not quite knowing what to expect, I entered. Our North American historical education often paints the years following the Second World War as ones of rebuilding and celebration. As I was walking through the Museum of Occupation, I very quickly came to realize that my knowledge of history had some very serious gaps. I had next to no understanding of the over 50 years of Soviet occupation imposed on the Baltic countries, beginning and after the Second World War. I did not fully understand the brutality of conflict between Nazis and Soviets during the Second World War, where Latvians were forced to fight against each other, brother against brother. I thought of how recently the Baltic countries were able to achieve their own independence, and about how many of the wonderful musicians and friends that I had made on our trip had spent much of their lives under this occupation. It brought me to tears, thinking of the beautiful music and art that I had experienced on the trip. And the answers to my earlier questions about community singing in Baltic countries began to become clear. Song and dance are some of the most powerful tools we have to bring people together, to craft a national identity, to preserve language and culture in the face of dreadful and monolithic opposition. Singing is not just a pastime, but a vital and integral way for people to tell their story, to be who they are meant to be, and live the lives they want to live. It's a lesson that we could do well to learn here in Canada during this time when our own independence from our own domineering neighbor is increasingly called into question. My time in the Baltics completely changed my beliefs on what choral music can be and what its purpose is in our lives. Compared to my 19-year-old self singing in Estonian for the first time, I feel that much closer to grasping the true beauty and importance of Baltic choral singing. The tour has inspired me to program much more Baltic music with my own choir, the Orpheus Choir of Toronto. You have some information of our upcoming season on your tables, and our concert coming up on October 25th will feature pieces by Latvian composer Laura Jakobson and Estonian composer Veljo Tormis. And this is just the beginning for me as I continue to bring the knowledge that Laura so graciously worked diligently to bring to us Canadian choral leaders. I'm so grateful for this experience and to all of you for having me here today, and I'll never forget my time in Riga and Tallinn. Thank you very much.
So we are now going to premiere this wonderful video. It's about 10 minutes long, and I hope you enjoy it.
The nations of Latvia and Estonia are built on the pillars of choral singing, folk songs, and folk traditions.
Choral singing in this region is more than a pastime. It's really part of the identity of people in Latvia and in Estonia.
My world for the past 30 years has very much revolved around the promotion of and collaboration with professional and amateur choirs, choral conductors, and composers in Canada and Latvia. We were able to organize our first tour to Latvia and Estonia in May 2025 with 9 wonderful choral conductors, composers, professors, and patrons from across Canada. I was born and raised in Canada, but my ancestral homeland is Latvia. I have always lived in both worlds, and I've always wanted to bring these two choral worlds together.
She has so many connections with Latvian and Estonian conductors, composers, educators, performers.
The immediate sense of musicality and artistry that was present in pretty much every rehearsal we observed. I was so impressed.
We got to see the idea of choir as a tool of statecraft. How can vocal music bring people together on a community level?
Generally, throughout the culture, performing arts and live music are so baked into what people do every day. It was just really exciting and energizing to be in a community where it was so valued. I spent a lot of time trying to think of why is this the case? Why is there such a focus on this music and vocal music in particular? And as we met more people and learned more about the culture and discovered the importance of maintaining that language and this sense of culture and identity and a real Latvian way of living and being, it became clearer.
So much of how choral music moves through the world is through partnership and exchange. You need two sides to every relationship. When both sides understand the power of collaborative learning, you have a relationship that you just know is going to be special.
Thanks to a wonderful partnership with conductor and professor Aira Birziņa and the Jāzeps Vītols Latvian Academy of Music, we also shared some of our unique history and contemporary Canadian choral music with our Latvian colleagues in Riga.
Getting to work with those high schoolers and to share Canadian choral music with them and to conduct through pieces and have them sight read so responsively was just magnificent.
The fact that we were able to see so much of the process in its entirety, right from the beginning in the schooling system through to incredible developmental youth choirs, and then into some of the finest professional ensembles in the world, we got to see the process of molding a musician from start to finish. They have such incredible discipline about their craft. There is an approach that is both so filled with passion and yet overpowered with precision.
Learning about other cultures and traditions broadens our perspectives about the world we live in, and I would hope strengthens our empathy toward and understanding of other cultures in a world that so desperately needs it.
Laura allowed us also to appreciate aspects of culture such as architecture, the beautiful countryside, which all contributes to this wonderful sense of identity in Latvia, and choral singing is such an integral part of that identity.
And you can just see it right on people's faces. There is such a sense of pride in not just the music that they are making, but about the symbolism of the community and what coming together as not just one choir, but of one large group of choirs means to the world. And the way that they combine all of these different art forms together with song and dance and artistry, it's such a beautiful place to be around. And I think seeing all of this gives us as Canadians a lot of food for thought about how we can use our different art forms together in collaboration to try to send a larger message into our culture and into our society. They clearly understand the role that music plays in all of those functions. There's just such an overwhelming beauty to so many people sharing one voice together. And it's so clearly a celebration of everything that is Latvian culture. The second half of the tour, which saw our group go to Estonia, was a really needed piece of context after our experiences in Riga.
We didn't feel like we were just attending concerts. We really became part of the process by watching rehearsals in progress and having conversations with the conductors and composers.
Music is not what they do, it is who they are.
This energy shows up everywhere, whether it's in the incredible beauty of the Arvo Pärt Center or of the unbelievable artistry that awaited us in Tallinn.
We were welcomed into many different choir rehearsals of various ages, and they all had an incredibly high standard of artistry and musicianship.
Musicians learn the most in rehearsal more than performance. When we get to see how other people work, how they treat one another, how they talk to one another, how they problem solve and approach everything within their art, that's where we really hone our craft. I think all of these elements worked together to give us a really incredible experience as people in the choral music world. We were given so much more to think about than any of us could have ever expected.
I'm so grateful to everyone who contributed to and shared in this experience.
Thank you so much, Laura and Thomas. It really looks like a whirlwind tour. Now we would like to give a chance to everybody to ask questions or comments on the film, whatever you'd like. I'd like to, Thomas, you were mentioning a bit of a difference in the Latvian and Estonian sound. Could you expand on that a bit?
Sure. I mean, the biggest one I noticed, it was even just, the difference between just the languages themselves and the vowels that make up the words. I can't talk about it very scientifically, but even as soon as we crossed the border into Estonia, the sounds we heard around us of people talking became much more brighter, more of this kind of like feel in everything. And then we watched a bunch of warm-ups. In North American choirs, we sing the Italian vowels, E, E, A, O, U, whatever. I remember going to one rehearsal, and their first warm-up was E, O, U, A, U, O, E, E. And I was like, oh, this is really making a different sound. Starting your rehearsal with just different building blocks of tone. So yeah, it was very interesting.
Any more questions, please?
Laura, thank you. Are you planning anything similar with our cousins, the Lithuanians?
Yeah, I knew someone was going to ask that. So the timing for the tour is, people can only take so much time off. So when I did a survey, we knew it could only be 10 days. It has to be at a certain time of year. And so Estonia and Latvia were the logical first that we could do in that period of time. I would certainly consider Lithuania in the future as well. And there will be future tours. They may happen at different times of the year, but we'll definitely have Lithuania on the radar, yes.
Throughout Latvia, there are many music schools in probably every single city that has a school. So I was wondering, you did the cathedral school, but were there others that you visited?
When in a 5-day period, we were at the cathedral school at 8 o'clock in the morning when the little guys were there.
I went to school close to Estonian border, and the very first song that was that I sang, Estonian song, translated in Latvian, was Tuljaks. And that was also sung in a song festival at one time.
Would the Estonians like to sing the song for us? I tried. Any more questions, please?
Okay, when we talked about this before this presentation, Laura, I think you were giving me some numbers about how many schools you went to and all this. Do you remember any of those numbers offhand?
Well, they're all in those credits, so
It's a lot.
many.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm actually astonished when I put together the credits list of how many choirs, schools, concerts we actually visited in such a short period of time. I'm surprised we actually remembered to eat, but sometimes we didn't do that either.
I think it's probably close to 30.
30.
Yeah. Over the course of 10 days, I'd say it was probably close to 30 different choral organizations or schools. We would often have, like I said, 3 events per day, which it was great. We were certainly not bored.
Any more questions? I'll just take, I was just thinking about what Imants said about the song that he sung was common to both, I guess, to Estonians and Latvians. Do you see any more kind of collaborations happening between Latvia and Estonia, for example, in the choral field? Anywhere. Go ahead. Mike, please.
I can't say specifically Latvian, Estonian. We have some, I mean, you never know, because so many wonderful opportunities were born over those 10 days. We do have some possible collaborations, projects happening in Alberta in the next couple of years. And we're talking about some commissions that would involve Canadian and Latvian choirs. So there are some things budding, but if you have any ideas, let me know, Mara, I'll make it happen.
Any more questions? Thank you so much. That was fantastic. And please let us know when these concerts are happening so that we can tune in or get to them. Thank you so much.